Prayers to the beautiful deities, lordships of Jagannath Mandir, Sri Jagannath Mandir, ISKCON Shishadipuram, Baldeva Prabhu ki jai, Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Lord Jagannath ki jai, Gaur Nitai ki jai, Panchtattva ki jai, Lord Parshuram ki jai, Lord Vaman Dev ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll say our prayers. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, we are in chapter 18, last chapter, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. And today we'll be doing shloka 18.30. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham chaya veti buddhi sapartha satviki. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is said to be in the mode of goodness. So this is interesting. I personally find this chapter very interesting because not only it's the conclusion. So you are based on this. If you have read through the entire Bhagavad Gita, um, you should be better than you should be better version than what you were earlier. So, and so this is conclusion, and this is something we would use it in our everyday life for our decision making. Okay, so yeah, so now this is to do with knowledge, intelligence, and how it's working. Um, so now we know that if anybody, if anybody who's born in India would know, about the soul and everything. But if somebody is new, they would know that we, by this time, after having read through everything, we would know that we are spiritual beings, we are spiritual soul and spirit soul, but infinitesimal, very tiny, and always dependent on perfect Lord Shri Krishna. But now we experience this imperfectness um, based on whatever things we have experienced in our life, or the situations we face and everything. We experience this imperfectness, you know. There are things we want to experience, there are things which we like but we don't want, and there are things which we don't want or we don't like, the suffering and all miseries. But we realize that this is all imperfectness. We didn't want this, but we're getting this. So we know that this is imperfectness because we have, well, then we realize that we have taken this material body of illusion or material energy, and in this material world we are, and here in this material world we are constantly exposed to exercise our free will to make choices, and our cumulative choices or decisions we take determine what happens next. We know about the karma and reaction, and later in this life and next life. So this is how it is, and how to get out of this cycle of birth and death, how to be in the best state, how to be able to please Krishna. So we know about entire thing. We just have to practice it. So to make proper choices, a developed faculty of discrimination is required. So we make choices with intelligence, decision making. The power to discriminate comes with intelligence. Intelligence is an element in our body. It's not an organ in our body. It's an element in our body. So it's not a gross organ, but it's an element, just like mind, intelligence, ego. We know that this is subtle body. So the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Lord Sri Krishna to Arjuna, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, um, and so because of the situation of Arjuna at that time, to help him equip with the power of discrimination. So initially, Arjuna was confused about his duty, what ought to be done, what ought not to be done. Although Arjuna was a great person and a warrior, a Kshatriya, a great Kshatriya, Arjuna, when in the battlefield, experienced attachment to his relatives and thus got bewildered about his judgment or decision regarding what is proper action, what is improper action, what should be done, what should not be done. So the discourse of Bhagavad Gita happened there. So in that state of confusion and so and fear that whether he is doing something right by fighting or is it wrong. Now, what if he does something wrong? He doesn't want to do something wrong because Arjuna is a great devotee of Lord. He didn't want to do anything wrong. So he surrendered to Lord Sri Krishna and requested Lord Krishna to enlighten him regarding what is his duty. So Lord Krishna gave him a discourse to help him develop his intelligence, power to discriminate. We had the discourse of this Bhagavad Gita, like we have this famous 18 days Gita Gyan program. So like that it happened, but it was not 18 days. It was it was all happened. I think they say that it happened in 45 minutes, something like that. So Arjuna was already well versed, but he just had a doubt, so it was done there. And with perfect knowledge, his doubts were removed, and he decided to fight, and he finally won the war. So we also know that there are three modes of material nature, and here the mode of goodness is being talked about. So the mode of goodness is said to illuminate one's intellect, and this sattvic or intellect or mode of intelligence in mode of goodness. Um, so in this with this knowledge, a person has the ability, that is person knows to discriminate the right and wrong of things, what is right, what is wrong. So based on this intelligence in the mode of goodness, this happens. And actions, what actions are good, what actions are bad, everything, what thoughts are good, what thoughts are bad. So what is to be feared, what is not to be feared, what ought to be done, what ought not to be done. So this is what happens when, this is what Lord Krishna is saying. So this mode of goodness illuminates one's intellect. So, so we know that we all have to take decisions, and all the time, every day, we come across situations. So it's intelligence is being behind this thing. Mind, of course, works with intelligence. Mind never works without intelligence. It's just that mind can be strong, and just like a person taking dog for a walk, a big dog. But if the dog is powerful, he can pull the master in the direction. So that's like that. So mind can pull the intelligence, or if it's a mind is strong, or intelligence, if it is strong, it will control the mind. What ought to be done, what ought not to be done. So this is how it is. So mind and intelligence work together. So we are reasoning and understanding and reaching decisions. And I mean, you come across a solution, you ponder, you use your intelligence, and you reason using knowledge, gyan, and you come to an understanding, and you take a decision, and you make choice to act based on that decision. So this is how the entire thing works, and we had earlier read about all these in detail in the previous in the previous shlokas of this chapter. So earlier the threefold nature of the knowledge was talked about by Lord, and now the threefold nature of the intellect is being described. So you have your intelligence, mind, everything in this material world. It can be in the material mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. So usually it's mixed. One could be more than the other. So, and also we earlier read about that there is a knower, there is an object of knowledge, and there is knowledge. And also we got to know that there is some kind of subtle preparation which happens, subtle form of work which happens before you choose to act or perform an action on a gross or physical level. There is some preparation that happens at the mental or subtle level, which we said this is the, what do you call, um, impetus. What is the impetus or inspiration or impulse behind something before one takes an action? And we also read about there is something called three constituents of work or elements of work: um, senses, work, and the doer or the actual worker. So this is how we are acting on a daily basis. So knowledge is different from intellect. So knowledge is gyan, intelligence is what you would use for decision making, make choices, but you would reach a decision, come to an understanding, and take a decision. So this is how it is. So for example, I'll just use an example. Um, so you go to a temple, and they are giving you prasadam, and somebody is they are also serving one of the dishes. They are also giving kheer, right? But we all know otherwise that kheer is sweet. But um, how would you know that the kheer doesn't have sweet? Maybe it has no sweet, or maybe it has salt. How would you know? I mean, you have to taste it with your touch. You'll have to taste it with your tongue to come to conclusion, come to an understanding, come to um, by using your senses. But the intelligence says that we know about the dish. Every time we have had in the past, kheer always has sugar. It is sweet, but unless you actually taste it, you wouldn't know. So, um, but what if it has salt? So this is you will build this wisdom based on your past. Um, every time kheer is supposed to have sweet, but there could be an instance where you have experienced that somebody by mistake added salt. Um, but you would build this vivek or wisdom based on your experience, based on the intelligence of what you have experienced every time. Um, so, so this is how the mind and intelligence would work, and you will be using your senses. Um, so, so okay. Yeah. So the a little different. His Grace uh, Charan Prabhu gives a little more detail to this. He actually talks about there is something called healthy fear and unnecessary fear, bhaya abhay. So healthy fear is, for example, child should have fear of fire, knife, etc., live electric wire. On the other hand, we may have fear of certain things which is undesirable. Unnecessary fear, child may have fear about going to school. We have come across this thing. Similarly, someone is having a fear in following a spiritual path. So any preacher would have experienced this thing, that when you reach out to somebody, there would be some people who are who first of all oppose, and they have fear of getting into spiritual path, but because that is the image or picture media has formed about ISKCON devotees or Krishna devotees, that this is how they do it, and so people are afraid and they run away. Some of them. Um, so unduly fearful or unduly recklessness, both are undesirable. And then there is bandham moksham chaya beti. Sometimes people are not able to discriminate between feel good actions and the long term consequences of these actions. That such actions could be binding me or us. So sometimes we act, and they later we realize, this is not right. Somebody's so everybody would have faced this thing. So somebody who's well versed in scriptures, and he is so well versed that everything he does is based on what the scripture says, what Krishna says is right. So that would be in mode of goodness. you know um, so that is how it is. So buddhi sa partha satviki. So when one understands these differences properly, then that is buddhi or intelligence in the mode of goodness. To large extent, satviki buddhi comes by the study of scriptures, a transformational study. So one feels that this is right, and he wants to please Krishna, or he wants to do what is right only, so that he's not bound up in this cycle of repeated birth and death, karmic cycle. So where one has to take a body in this material body. So otherwise, so by practicing what is in scriptures, what Krishna says is right, one will be liberated. One would be, we can finally go back home, back to Godhead, free from the cycle of birth and death. So senses perceive the outer world. Senses comprise of doorway between inner world and outer world. And if this doorway is not illuminated, then there is destruction because of that doorway, except some transition chain of state need to be eliminated to avoid such accidents or such suffering. So if this doorway of sense are not illum illuminated, we make wrong choices, wrong turns, and we can take self-destructive decisions. So this is why one would experience suffering because of making wrong choices. Um, So here we understand that there is a difference between gyan and buddhi, intelligence, knowledge and intelligence. So Krishna is emphasizing that, Krishna has described that knowledge and goodness as seeing beyond matter to spirit. So real knowledge, that is how it is, that we are not body, we are spirit soul. So there is knowledge and goodness, that is what Krishna is this has described. But here, in this particular shloka, here intelligence in the mode of goodness is being described as knowing what should be done and what should not be done. So this is something we use it all the time, but somebody who is well versed in scriptures would be able to take all decisions based on the scriptures, not even one. But we are in material world, we are doing so many things. Um, there are some instances where you would make choices and later realize, oh, this is not right. So this is not as per scriptures. So sometimes senses are strong. So this is how it is. But anytime you take decisions based on scriptures, so there is intelligence in the mode of goodness. So this is what being is emphasized here. So this is interesting chapter. So rest of the shlokas are also um, very interesting. So I request you to please attend every day. So thank you, Prabhuji, Mataji. Thanks for joining. Um, we'll continue shloka recitation tomorrow and chanting tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.